and welcome to hell again. Or welcome to my personal least favorite live-action Transformers movie, Transformers Age of Extinction. I'm Elf!
And I'm Specs, and I must confess I'm not especially fond of this one either.
So if you enjoy this movie, much like our other movie, like the other times we have done the live-action movies, this may not be for you, though we hope to approach it with a sense of humor, as always. But it's not a favorite of either of us.
So we've heard this one described as a soft relaunch of the series, which seems fair.
Gone is Sam, his family, and barring a few minor appearances, the bulk of the robot cast, except for Optimus and Bumblebee.
Yep. The robot designs for the characters are much more simplified, even for the returning characters, and have brighter colors overall. I mean, you gotta catch the kids' attention.
Unlike the last movie, the cast for this one is fairly small, and we'll just be introducing them as we go.
With that said, let us begin!
Transformers Age of Extinction was released on June 27th, 2014.
Again, directed by Michael Bay, but now starring Mark Wahlberg as the new main protagonist, Cade Yeager.
So first off, my Blu-ray for this was fucking wild when we put it in, because the first sound setting for English just straight up doesn't work on my PS4. I was baffled to find out that there are 4 separate English audio tracks, audio description, which makes sense, Atmos, which is the default and clearly doesn't work on my player, 5.1 discrete Dolby Digital, and 2.0 discrete Dolby Digital. Ironically, a few days later, I would find out my Barbie Blu-ray has the same problem. This is the only time I've freaking seen this.
Wow.
And I was like, why? Why are there 6 of you, 5 of you, whatever?
That is a truly absurd number of things. I mean, audio description makes sense. The others just seem excessive.
I mean, I suppose they probably make more sense if you actually have, like, a surround sound setup.
That's true.
I just don't, and so I'm kind of like, well, that seems very extra, but I'm curious how many people have a setup where they actually can take advantage of either of any of those.
It's probably a significant number, but it's still less than the number of people who can't.
I would still you would still think, like, maybe they would put, like, the Dolby Digital 2.0 as, like, the default. I think that's what got me, is it's like, why is the default this thing that, like, won't even work on my player's a PS4? It's not like I'm doing this on some ancient Blu-ray player.
Yeah.
But, back to the actual movie, not just the wrapping that our present was in.
Yes. We open in space, above a prehistoric Earth, where dozens of alien ships are hovering above the planet.
It then cuts to the surface where we see dinosaurs doing dinosaur things. Chomping, nomming, all that jazz.
On one of the ships, a suspiciously organic hand presses a button that releases a bunch of strange machines that detonate and begin carbonizing the planet and the dinos.
At last, we finally know what killed the dinosaurs!
Carbonization. Super fast. Now, in the modern day, one of the carbonized skeletons has been found in the Arctic.
This is just a cut. There is no pop-up telling you how much time has passed, or what date and time we're in, or anything.
Yep. Some weird setting choices here, but we don't have time to go into that. It's just... And now welcome to Texas.
Autobots, saddle up and roll out.
The world's changed since the last movie, as we see signs to remember Chicago and to report alien activity.
Our main character, Cade, is introduced along with his friend/employee, Lucas.
Lucas appears to be a beach bum, and Cade seems surprised that he's shown up to work today.
Lucas is played by T.J. Miller, as I am more familiar with him, Robbie from Gravity Falls. Lucas, the character, will do nothing to help me get over my immediate dislike for him upon his appearance.
Mm-hmm. So they've arrived at a dilapidated movie theater to salvage materials and equipment.
A younger man tries to pass off some of the ancient theater equipment as IMAX.
Good luck with that, buddy. And we're treated with a horny comment from the guy's grandpa about the theater being famous and how people came from miles around for the women's big cha-chas, just in case you forgot this was a Michael Bay movie.
Inside the theater, an ancient-looking cab-over truck that's full of artillery shells piques Cade's interest.
We cut to some establishing shots of our environment.
Far from the urban and suburban environments from Sam's world, we're treated to the lush plains of the country.
A teenage girl is dropped off by her friends, and we see multiple mailboxes and signs that seem to belong to Cade.
Including mailboxes that say Jaeger Industries and Jaeger Robotics, stickers that say Jaeger Engineering and Jaeger Technologies respectively, and a sign telling neighbors to drop off items for repair and pay with what they think it's worth.
It's nice to see some color back in these movies. The greens and yellows really pop, and it's so much more visually appealing than any of the previous films.
Which have been very dark and very either blue or red and not much in between, so yeah.
Uh-huh.
And personally, I'm actually kind of impressed with the fairly solid environmental storytelling we have in this scene. From this, we know that Cade apparently helps out his neighbors and is operating either under several business names or has several failed businesses.
So this girl that we've seen, this is Cade's daughter, Tessa.
She opens a letter revealing that she has been denied financial aid for college. I'm going to point out that this is the exact opposite from fucking Sam getting his entire education paid for, by the way.
Yep. When she arrives at her house, she is greeted by some kind of defective robotic watchdog.
Further cementing that Cade maybe kind of sucks at his job.
Yep. Elsewhere in Washington, D.C., we are introduced to Cemetery Wind after additional exposition that after the Battle of Chicago, humanity turned against the aliens, not just the Decepticons.
Cemetery Wind is functionally a CIA unit run by a one Harold Attinger that's entire purpose is eradicating all Transformers.
Attinger is played by Kelsey Grammer, a man you've certainly heard if you haven't exactly seen him, playing Sideshow Bob from The Simpsons and the titular character from Frasier.
Cade has the truck from the theater towed to his home, something that his daughter isn't especially pleased about.
She confronts him about spending money that they do not have, and Cade displays some of what will be his A-plus parenting in this movie.
Evidently, he would not let his daughter go to prom with a date. He volunteered to go with her.
As her
date, chaperone, whatever. It's
weird.
Dude, seriously.
And then he complains about how short her pants are.
She's at home. Who the fuck cares? Like, she's in her house. She's allowed to dress however the hell she wants.
Yep. And then Lucas shows himself to be as smarmy as expected by calling her hot.
Just going off the actors' ages, I will let you know he's a good 14 years older than her and has clearly been friends with her father for a while, and all of this just makes my skin crawl, thanks.
There's a lot of ooh happening there.
A lot of ooh happening there, yes.
A lot of it.
Not to say age gaps are always a bad thing in relationships, but that one and the situation, ugh.
Like, this should be a trusted adult, and instead he was more
weirdly horny for this
predatory.
teenager. Yeah, and it's like, no. Again, just to remind you, we're in a freaking Michael Bay movie.
Yeah.
This one's especially weird because, like, we're gonna get more into it, but Cade's entire character arc is, like, taking care of his daughter, or it's supposed to be. I will comment on how well I think that's done later. But they, like, still try to sexualize his daughter. That, like, again, it just is very odd within the context of this movie that they're doing this, and I am baffled.
Yep. They couldn't decide what the hell they wanted to do.
Well, they couldn't.
Tessa continues to try and talk to her dad, showing him all the late bills they have, as Cade's inadequacy is on full display as several more inventions are shown to not work as intended or at all in his workshop.
Or as he calls it, a temple of technology.
Oh, that is so... Ugh.
You know, I'm just gonna call it a monument to his ego.
Yes.
And move on.
Yes. He's really full of himself. A realtor arrives to show a couple the land and the house because, shockingly, Cade is 6 months late on his house payments.
Cade then threatens violence to all three of them with a baseball bat.
Yeah.
Our hero, ladies and gentlemen.
The salt of the earth. Or something. God. And he's apparently been borrowing, in quotation marks, borrowing power from his neighbors.
Tessa asks the correct question here, which is, who's going to take care of her dad when she's gone? Because she's planning on going to college next year.
Cade, as you may imagine, takes offense to this because he's the big, strong daddy, don't you know?
Cemetery Wind has finally caught up with their next target, who is on board an abandoned steamer.
Said target is Ratchet,
who reveals that Optimus has sent out a distress signal telling all the Autobots to avoid humans.
Ratchet is heavily damaged by Cemetery Wind before another Transformer by the name of Lockdown reveals himself and rips out Ratchet's spark when he won't give up Optimus's location.
Lockdown is a bounty hunter that originated in Transformers Animated. This version, beyond also being a Cybertronian bounty hunter, bears little resemblance to his origin.
Back in Cade's workshop, he continues to fail as an inventor and a parent.
Working on various inept robots.
Taking jobs away from hard-working Americans, one robot at a time.
You know, I kind of doubt that, considering how well some of these work.
Considering his freaking painting robot was dying. Yeah.
Tessa is here, and she comments on his no boys before graduation rule.
He asks her where he was for his graduation, and she replies, "With me, the mistake."
I know that here he denies that she was a mistake, but there's no way in hell that she hasn't heard that before, even if it was from another family member or something, because otherwise, why would she fucking be repeating it? Yeah. And I don't care if it was them or Cade. Fuck you, Cade. She should never have felt this way.
Yeah.
He then points at a picture on the wall of Cade and his wife. They make the actor look younger by putting him in a baseball cap. I really wish I was kidding. Yeah. But I'm not. This is not even, like, hardly an exaggeration. Literally, they shoved the man in a baseball cap and said he was, like, 17 now.
Younger in quotation marks.
Younger!
It's like they didn't even do any makeup. Probably. After another asinine line that greatly insinuates that he doesn't trust his own daughter, he does deem her worthy of going out with her friends.
The next day, Cade's apparently been working on that old truck all night.
He brings Tessa and Lucas into the barn to show them what he's found,
revealing that he can get the truck to begin broadcasting the message from Optimus that Ratchet played.
Cade reaches the correct conclusion that the truck is a transformer.
Tessa and Lucas, take this well, both advocating turning it into the government for the reward money.
But Cade's super excited to learn more shit from the corpse of this transformer. To make his inventions better, of course.
You know the drill. Neither Cade or Lucas know what the fuck they're doing and manage to wake the transformer up from a stasis lock.
Yup. Said transformer revealing themselves to be none other than Optimus Prime.
And he wakes up mad, yelling, "I'll kill you, stay back."
Which, well, when you're knocked unconscious in a fighting situation and that's what you wake up from, yeah, you're not gonna be a happy camper.
No kidding. Cade does manage to talk Optimus down, but Optimus is in really bad shape, like coughing and leaking fluids from, like, his brain case and everything.
Cade offers to fix him.
Okay. Look, I know we as the audience know that the Autobots are good guys, and that Optimus is, like, peak good guy, but they, the characters, don't know that. Turning this truck or transformer into the government, especially because they have this looming threat of losing the entire farm, the entire house, whatever, just makes sense. It's so irritating.
Mm-hmm. Mercifully for all involved, Optimus is still played by Peter Cullen.
Obviously, Optimus has a super banged up alt, and apparently he had done this by scanning a beat up truck to try to keep on the down low.
Said alt mode is actually a cab over truck like his G1 incarnation, though, so it's a neat callback.
He will ultimately prove to be a bot that's been under immense amounts of stress and is far more tired and jaded with humanity than we have ever seen him.
I mean, the PTSD is real.
Yeah.
Attinger arrives on Lockdown's ship, which is chilling in the Arctic.
And we see that Lockdown clearly has some humanoid robotic underlings, as well as some robotic canines on board.
Attinger asks what happened in Mexico City, but Lockdown tells Attinger that it was Attinger's men that let Optimus Prime escape before being cryptic about humans' place in the universe.
Arriving back to the CIA headquarters, Attinger is told that they have a match for Optimus.
Returning to Cade, who is now fixing Optimus, they have a discussion about souls and sparks.
But things don't remain peaceful for long. We're treated to Lockdown and Cemetery Wind scrambling and heading towards the Jaeger farm.
There's so much compressed time here. Yeah. Scary guys with sunglasses hop out of the trucks, none of which are actual characters except for James Savoy, who operates as Attinger's field commander.
He's a bastard.
Yep. Savoy says they're looking for an abandoned truck and reveals that someone had called in a tip.
The men search the farm and don't find Optimus, but do find a live missile in the trash.
I think this is the missile that ended up in the living room.
It might have been, yeah.
Cade manages to out himself, referring to Optimus as him while feeding Savoy a story that he'd bought the truck and it had disappeared overnight.
Attinger tells Savoy to use the girl over the radio, referring to Tessa.
Savoy threatens Tessa with a gun while Cade pleads for them to let her go.
Optimus bursts out of some kind of underground area of the barn and tells Cade and the others to run.
They are further saved when a random Sonic RS shows up to save them, even managing a jump and hitting several agents in the face with the wheels.
You'd be forgiven for assuming that such feats would mean this is another Transformer, but no, this is just some guy.
Said guy is Shane Dyson, Tessa's boyfriend, whom we saw very briefly on a video call with her earlier in the movie.
He's a rally driver, meaning he's a fantastic driver, actually, and chaos ensues as they attempt to escape from the horde of CIA agents tailing them.
Honestly, the fact that they've never had a rally driver in any of these before seems like a missed opportunity.
Yeah, I actually agree with you.
En route, Lucas reveals that he was the tipster that Savoy mentioned earlier.
God, he is just the worst.
He continues to talk about the money all the while during this whole chase scene, too.
They managed to lose the agents momentarily by literally driving through a VFW hall.
The veterans of foreign wars have been further victimized by people fleeing the federal government.
Yep.
Arriving at an abandoned factory, we see that Lockdown has caught up with Optimus, and the two are fighting on top of the factory.
While fighting Lockdown, Optimus manages to also take out two of the remaining CIA vehicles, while the getaway car goes into the factory, somehow jumping off several floors up and landing perfectly on a ramp below. I have no idea how Shane knew this was here, but fine, whatever.
While they land safely, the car is apparently damaged enough that they can't continue to drive it, and they escape on foot.
Lockdown throws grenades at the group, but they all manage to escape except for Lucas, so no big loss. Moving on.
Though it is a visual that wouldn't be out of place in a horror movie, with the carbonized corpse frozen in mid-stride. And this is an ominous forewarning of what might happen later in the film, I think.
Cade, Shane, and Tessa then get into Optimus's cab and finally manage to lose the remaining CIA agents.
Back at headquarters, Attinger throws a fit.
Lockdown transforms into his alt mode and doesn't follow Optimus in the group for some reason.
Mm-hmm. Lockdown's alt mode is a black Lamborghini Aventador, which is admittedly a very sleek and spiffy looking vehicle.
The prop car was owned by Michael Bay. I kind of want to make a joke about, I guess that's a way to save money, but honestly, Bay probably got paid for using his car as a prop. I have no idea though. Like the whole thing, I was just like, really?
I feel like he charged them to use it. Who knows? On board Optimus, the crew stops at an abandoned gas station and everyone acts really sad about Lucas for reasons that are completely alien to us.
Optimus tells the group to stay put as he scouts around to make sure they weren't followed.
Elsewhere, nearer to the Jaeger farm, Attinger yells at his men,
revealing to Savoy that Washington thinks they're after a Decepticon target, and they need to find the Jaeger family first. So, this basically, based on this and, like, kind of an earlier conversation we saw with Attinger in his office, or in office, it seems like the government isn't necessarily anti-Autobot, but, like, Attinger wants to kill them. Like, it seems to imply they wouldn't be happy knowing that they were trying to kill Optimus, basically.
Yeah. This is very much one guy's war. One guy's thing where he's doing this specifically for him.
Yeah.
Rather than...
Also, this entire little conversation with Savoy is weird, because then Attinger says that, like, the cops and the FBI know to hand Cade over, so I'm a little curious what he means by, like, getting to him first, because if he gets caught by anybody else, they're just gonna get handed to him.
They might not get handed to him directly. They might end up handing him to a different military branch.
That's true.
Back at the gas station, the humans are holed up inside.
Cade proceeds to be a dick to his daughter's boyfriend, as one would expect from this egotistical asswipe of a man.
First off, calling Shane a leprechaun due to his Irish accent.
Second off, telling Shane it is illegal for him to be dating Tess because she's a 17-year-old minor. This one is especially weird because the movie makes a big deal out of the Romeo and Juliet laws protecting the two of them, even with their 3-year age gap, but the age of consent in Texas is literally 17, meaning this entire exchange is pointless.
It's just Cade waving his ego around.
Yes, his ego.
Mm-hmm. I had to do a word swap there.
Fill in the blanks.
Yes. Tessa is understandably upset with her dad because he keeps harping on trusting her and taking care of her, and she rightfully points out that if he were doing that, he'd have reported the truck instead of irreparably fucking up her life and getting Lucas killed.
Optimus arrives back, and they load up with anything that looks useful from the gas station.
Cade had earlier grabbed one of the CIA's little flying drone things and has modified it so it's under his control.
Using it, he verifies that his bank accounts are locked and is able to avoid the cops that descend upon the ATM he did this with.
On the road again, Optimus is able to scan for a new alt mode, returning to something much closer to his alt in the previous movies, as a blue Western Star 5700 OP concept truck with the flame decals.
He calls the remaining Autobots on the radio and arrives at Monument Valley to meet up with them.
We are introduced to, in order of appearance,
Hound, based very loosely off his G1 incarnation, and about the only thing that really carries over is that he's green.
Yep. If anything, his nature is more akin to Cup, right down to the damn cigar.
He is, however, voiced by the indelible John Goodman, meaning that I probably like this character far more than is truly warranted from the voice alone. Listening to John Goodman talk in a more natural accent gives me the warm and fuzzies, even if he's talking about filling bad guys full of bullets. Seriously, though, they should have just made him Cup. It's not as if they're beholden to the original designs for any of these characters.
Yep. He also transforms into an Oshkosh defense truck.
Drifts, again, based very loosely off his original IDW version.
He is a blue samurai mech.
His original incarnation was a white mech that turned into a sports car because the entire basis for his name and stuff was based on Tokyo drifting.
Mm-hmm. It's irritating that here he's reimagined as a more stereotypical looking samurai, when him being a ninja samurai stereotype was a very common criticism when the character was introduced. And he just does not act like Drift at all.
He is voiced by Ken Watanabe, who you may have seen in Batman Begins as Ra's al Ghul, or as the police chief in Detective Pikachu.
He is a triple changer in this version, being able to transform into a 2013 Bugatti Veyron Grand Sport Vitesse sports car, and a helicopter that doesn't seem to be based on an actual real-life helicopter.
Again, I find the helicopter thing kind of obnoxious, given his entire name is based around a car.
Yeah. Crosshairs, a green paratrooper-looking bot who turns into a Chevrolet C7 Corvette Stingray.
There is a G1 Autobot sharing this name, but there's no similarity at all between the two, at least to us, so they appear unrelated.
He is voiced by John DiMaggio, or Bender from Futurama, or Jake the Dog from Adventure Time.
An actual quote from the man that I dug up from TF Wiki.
Mm-hmm.
Last Christmas, I go to see some Christmas movie. Me, my girlfriend, and some of our family members. And we see a Transformers trailer. At the end of it, as it's dying down, it's quiet in the theater. And I go, thanks, Michael Bay. You just ruined fucking Christmas. And the whole place exploded in laughter, which is great, right? This is LA at the Cinemadrome or whatever. Literally 3 weeks later, I get a call saying, yeah, John, Michael Bay needs to see you in Santa Monica. So it turns out that I totally shit on the movie, and then 3 weeks later I end up in it. Which honestly might be the funniest behind-the-scenes thing I've ever read for a Transformers thing, so...
Yep. And lastly, our only other returning Autobot, Bumblebee.
Now disguised as a mostly black 1967 Camaro without yellow accents, though his robot mode still seems to be primarily yellow.
He comes across as more insubordinate than in the past, but otherwise, unfortunately, has less of a character in this movie than the last one.
The group welcomes Optimus back.
Hound further cementing his place as the only good thing here, describes humans as a bunch of backstabbing weasels.
He also threatens to drop a grenade down Drift's throat when the bot gets a little more zen on him than he feels like dealing with in the moment. Is this worth noting? Is this relevant at all? Of course not, damn it, but it made me laugh.
Naturally, being that pretty much everybody in this movie is deeply unlikable, we cut to the evening and various groups are bickering.
The humans, namely Kate and Shane, are insulting each other.
Drift calls Bumblebee a child, and proceeds to insult the fact that Bee's been leading them since Optimus disappeared.
Crosshairs happily watches the other two fighting and says he's been waiting for them all to kill each other so he can be in charge. Just me reporting to me.
Optimus calls for action to figure out why Lockdown and the humans are hunting them.
And Cade may not know why they're hunting them, but he is able to point at a possible who due to the footage on the stolen drone.
The group realizing that the government has been handing over the remains of the Transformers to a company headquartered in Chicago, Kinetic Solutions Incorporated, or KSI.
Optimus says he's sworn to never kill humans, but he is definitely going to kill the person behind the Autobot deaths.
The group heads out to Chicago.
And suddenly, high heels. Several women, walking perfectly in sync, go to greet a bald man getting out of a car.
This is Joshua Joyce, the owner of KSI, and he is a Steve Jobs ripoff.
Joshua is played by Stanley Tucci, who is also in the category of probably better than this movie deserves.
A blonde woman we previously saw in the Arctic, Darcy Tyrrell, talks to him about the dinosaur remains that they found,
which contained a mysterious ore that they have dubbed Transformium.
So basically, they made a connection with a formerly worthless rare earth metal to what the Transformers are made of, or that it is what they're made of.
KSI has basically figured out how to use this as programmable metal.
Joshua transforms a sample into several things, including a gun and a speaker.
We also see one of KSI's other projects, Galvatron.
Guess who this was supposed to be based on? Definitely not Megatron, but it sure looks a hell of a lot like Megatron.
Joshua even commenting on his confusion and aggravation that it keeps ending up looking like Megatron, because they've gone through multiple prototypes.
This won't be important later,
No!
We also see that Brains from the previous movie is being imprisoned and forced to translate the information from other Transformer corpses under penalty of shock treatment.
And this is maybe the first instance where you can make the argument that Sam might be dead.
Yeah.
This movie does not address it. It's implied in the next movie, but unfortunately, it's just not important. Because I guess we don't care about any characters in this. But you have to wonder how the hell they got a hold of Brains.
Yup. In an abandoned church, the group has set up camp.
Cade continues to be a dick, commenting on his daughter's shorts and tossing some mouthwash so Shane can't use it before making out with his daughter.
We see them prepping for breaking into KSI, including making fake IDs.
Cade and Shane are able to drive into the back entrance with Bumblebee for KSI using the fake IDs. I guess KSI is like scanning all these cars and stuff, so they had driven Bumblebee in under the pretense of it was going to be scanned.
Yeah, as presumably a model for car designs. You know, I feel like the companies that actually make the cars would have issues with that.
Probably, yeah.
So they drive into the showroom where a new prototype KSI bot is on display, one that has clearly been modeled after Bee.
Inspired by Bumblebee, but better in every way. According to the nice supermodel in the commercial, of course. Does this mean the general public, knows about Bumblebee specifically?
Apparently. Bumblebee takes offense at this.
Joshua walks in, insults Bumblebee specifically, calling him vintage junk while he's in car mode, before leaving.
Poor Shane tries to keep Bumblebee calm, but fails and knocks over the display prototype named Stinger.
Stinger is a bright pink, so you know, warfare for her.
Or for those very confident in their masculinity. And I have to say, this is definitely the, Bumblebee acting of
immature thing.
Yes.
Yes. Bumblebee and Shane are able to escape, and Kate is left inside to infiltrate basically the rest of the building or the lab.
Yeah. How he managed to get so many places without, presumably, an ID that would let him into all of the places is very...
I mean, he had an ID, so I have to assume whoever's ID it was let was maybe high enough up that he could.
Maybe, but that doesn't necessarily make a whole lot of sense.
I don't know.
In a creepy tunnel that is apparently Joshua's favorite meeting location, Joshua and Attinger have a conversation.
One where Joshua is not pleased that someone has gotten a hold of one of his drones and might know of his involvement.
And Attinger's motives are revealed to us, which is money, and retirement.
Kate is able to make it into the lab, sending footage of Ratchet's body being melted down to the Autobots, who understandably don't take it very well.
Kate is found out when his badge number has been scanned in multiple locations and taken up to an actual meeting room by Joshua, where Attinger begins interrogating him.
The Autobots head back towards KSI, Bumblebee getting a hot new 2014 Camaro vault.
The group breaks in through the front door. For all that these characters seem to hate each other, they work so well together.
Bumblebee grabs onto Drift's helicopter mode and gets a lift up to Kate's location and retrieves him. It's actually kind of nice. There's almost always too much fighting in these movies, but this entire scene is, like, quick, it has action, and, like, it does something that's needed in the story. It was just kind of nice.
Yeah. The Autobots make their way to the lab, freeing Brains and confronting Joshua. And here, we deal with the moral and ethical conundrum of, for one side, it's desecration of the dead, and for the other, it's weaponizing technology from the spoils of war.
Joshua says that they know how to build them now, and they don't need them anymore.
Upon hearing this, Optimus declares, Autobots, we're done, and the group leaves.
Attinger pushes Joshua to use his prototypes to take down the Autobots.
To which Galvatron and Stinger are deployed.
Galvatron is a steel gray 2014 Freightliner Argosy, meaning he is a semi in this movie.
It appears that the KSI bots don't transform in a traditional manner, much more akin to the Transformium sample, where it sort of dissolved into cubes before reforming.
Into, the new shape.
Yeah. Galvatron transforms into bot mode and slams into the traffic going the opposite direction, hitting several civilian vehicles because it's apparently not under its operator's commands.
The Autobots head back the direction they came to escape Galvatron, but are pursued by Stinger and Galvatron. Attinger seems very unconcerned with the casualties here.
Attinger is a very, the ends justify the means, and civilians are very justifiable casualties sort of person here.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Joshua surprisingly has something of a conscience.
Some action scenes, including our favorite, humans being caught and thrown by soft metal robot hands.
Meaning the humans started in Bumblebee but end up in Optimus as the two, transformed midair and passed them back. Or, Z passed them to Optimus.
Tessa seems to get the worst of this, getting thrown around or rolling the most out of the three.
Optimus and Galvatron begin fighting hand to hand.
Tessa is separated from her dad and Shane and attempting to get out of the way of the fight.
Optimus tells Galvatron, "You have no soul." And Galvatron responds with, "That is why I have no fear."
Which, honestly, is a banger line.
It is! And hey, one of the very few positives in this movie for me is that Frank Welker is finally voicing Galvatron. I'm thankfully using his Megatron voice and not Evil Fred's, though.
Though this does beg the question of, what do these KSI bots look like from a Cybertronian perspective? A Frankensteinian monstrosity? I mean, do they feel weird? Do they have weird electromagnetic signatures?
It would be such a cool thing to explore, and they just do nothing with it.
Yeah. Their fight is interrupted by the arrival of Lockdown's huge ship, and Optimus is hit by a missile.
Because Lockdown can just transform his whole ass face into a gun, apparently.
Yeah, Lockdown tells Optimus that his creators want him back and captures him and, the vehicle that Tessa is hiding in a net, because Tessa is hiding in a car that Optimus ended up, sort of draped against the front of it after being hit with that missile.
They are lifted onto Lockdown's ship, Lockdown ordering the human to be disposed of.
Optimus is dragged away as Lockdown does some plot dumping.
Apparently Optimus was a knight.
This is the first we've heard of this, though his new frame does have a more knightly appearance.
And Lockdown has apparently stolen the knight's, plural, ship and is using it as his own personal prison?
That's a lot.
A lot that's not super relevant even to the rest of the plot.
Yeah. So Optimus is thrown into a cell, specifically upside down, because that's how we're doing things on this ship.
Apparently, Tessa is able to escape from the vehicle she was trapped in by fighting back some random bots or drones that were putting garbage in the incinerator, and that had weirdly cartoony eyes. It was very strange.
They feel like they were pulled out from MSTK.
A little bit.
Back outside, Attinger's men land on a Lockdown ship, and Lockdown hands over something called a seed, which is, I guess, Attinger's payment for catching Optimus.
The other Autobots and the remaining humans make their way onto Lockdown's ship, which is preparing to leave Earth.
Crosshairs helpfully lists all of the possible dangers.
It was not a short list.
Meanwhile, Drift says, "Let's use violence as a last resort," before a random metal tentacle pops out of the wall and he starts stabbing it while yelling, "I kill you! Kill you!"
So, fun story, this version of Drift is also an ex-Decepticon like his original incarnation. I don't think he does well with surprises.
Well, to be fair, I don't think any ex-Decepticon would do super well with surprises.
And again, I don't even know if they ever say that in the movies. That's me pulling it. Like, that's what it said on the TF Wiki, so it was in at least some kind of supplemental material. If
It
it's
was
not
probably
listed.
in the comic.
Yeah.
So many things are in the comics. Or possibly a movie adaptation. Or not a movie adaptation, book adaptation?
Yeah, that too.
So the group splits up, and Cade and Shane going off on their own to find Tessa.
Crosshairs yanks some little glowy thing out of the wall, which seems to make some anchors fire into the ground below.
Lockdown realizes that someone is on his ship, and he releases the hounds. The metal dog things we saw earlier.
Unfortunately, the dogs find Tessa first, and she runs, managing to hide near another alien prisoner.
That she has to kill because it tries to eat her or feel her up with its tongue, because, again, upside down.
But which one is it? You decide.
Cade and Shane find what looks like the knight's armory, and he attempts to pull a spike. One of the weapons, but most of the weapons are too damn big to be terribly useful to humans.
So Shane chickens out, but Cade, big boy action hero that he is suddenly a surprisingly good shot with the knife gun that is small enough for him to use.
Meanwhile, Hound, Drift, and Crosshairs find Optimus and release him from his cell.
Tessa meets up with her dad and boyfriend.
And the three attempt to walk/climb down the anchors into one of the buildings they're connected to.
The building appears to be the former Sears Tower.
Tessa is less than thrilled about the whole situation, threatening to go back to the ship.
But the evil metal doggos begin attacking the cables.
Don't worry, they're saved yet again by soft metal robot hands. Bumblebee's in this case as he catches them when the cables snap.
Crosshairs arrives to take the four aboard a smaller ship he presumably stole off Lockdown's ship.
Yep. They're chased through the streets of Chicago.
B takes over driving duty, and Crosshairs tells the humans how to use the guns before jumping off and pulling a very badass slow motion thing with parachutes and taking down several dudes.
It looked kick-ass.
It did.
Civilian casualties continue to rise as they crash land.
But they manage to land on a car in such a way that the driver is completely unharmed.
Ah, the wonders of modern car engineering.
Driver of said car gets out, and his first thought is, "Hey, where's your insurance?"
I mean, I think I'd still be stuck on that too.
I'm also like, is he in shock? I mean, like, nobody expects an alien ship to fall out of the sky and hit their car. Like, I feel like he was operating on a script, and like, was it a dumb thing to say? Sure, but I don't know if I can blame him.
Well, I mean, considering what I did that one time, the fucking gas station thing came off. I literally put the gas nozzle down on the ground because I wasn't done pumping my stupid gas. And the actual hose pipe had disconnected. So, like, that was a way less charged situation than this.
But Cade, running on assholery and adrenaline, asks the guy how you get insurance on a spaceship before we're reminded that this movie, brought to you by Bud Light, as Cade opens a beer and chugs it.
And then he tosses it on the ground without even finishing the stupid thing. And I mean, why were there beers, you may understandably ask? Because they crashed through a beer truck earlier. And so there's beer everywhere.
Back with our pal Joshua, we see that he and a chunk of his tech is being taken to China in order to meet Attinger and get the seat.
Hound is able to separate a smaller part of Lockdown's ship, and he and Optimus escape, landing none too delicately to meet up with the rest of the Autobots.
Bee and the humans arrive. Crosshairs insinuates that they're gonna frickin' leave Earth now that they have a ship.
Good on them. I mean,
completely fucking understandable.
Yes. Optimus tells Cade that the humans have no idea what they've unleashed, as Megatron has seemingly been revived in Galvatron.
Brain's role in the lab is specifically revealed to the rest of the characters as having been the translator from the data the lab was getting from the dead Transformer heads, which means he kind of knew that Megatron maybe wasn't quite as dead as the humans thought, and just let them do it.
And now Megatron wants the seed.
The seed is apparently an alien device that can cyberform organic things into metals, and was used by the Cybertronians creators. It's basically the thing we saw at the beginning of the movie with the dinosaurs.
Yep. The Autobots decide to help the humans out one last time.
Now in China, Joshua is seen watching Galvatron being unloaded from a plane and reveals that KSI plans to detonate the seed in the middle of the Mongolian desert, which according to the wiki and from what we looked up seems to just be the Gobi Desert, in order to create enough transformium to continue production of their artificial bots.
So let's just destroy this delicate ecosystem instead and cause an environmental disaster.
Cade and company break into a parked train and get some rest. Cade and Shane having a short heart-to-heart regarding taking care of Tessa.
The next day, somehow, Cade is able to call Joshua and warn him that Galvatron has plans for the seed.
Including some of the dumbest dialogue in the entire movie. I know you have a conscience because you're an inventor like me. Personally, I haven't seen anything in this movie that makes me think either of these people have well-developed consciences. And also, this is like further bullshit compared to Cade was perfectly fine dismembering a corpse earlier in the movie, and now he's sort of being high and mighty with Joshua here.
Yeah. They have consciences like Edison's.
That explains everything. What am I saying?
Well, are you telling me they wouldn't electrocute an elephant if it would get them stuff?
Probably.
Cops descend on the group's location and they bug out, taking the spaceship to China.
In space, Lockdown has realized that Optimus has escaped with his trophy case and heads back to Earth.
In China, Attinger arrives with the seed, and Joshua manages to prove Cade's earlier comment correct,
saying he started his company to make the world a better place, and he's starting to have reservations.
In the KSI facility, Galvatron wakes up and escapes containment.
To give credit to Joshua, he did actually listen to Cade and told his underlings to not activate Galvatron.
Unfortunately, it's not like they could keep him from activating.
He activated himself.
Yep. Galvatron takes over all the KSI bots in the facility, giving him his own little army.
Joshua grabs the seed and escapes out the back with Darcy and Su Yuming. Su Yuming is the CEO of KSI's Chinese operations. We've seen a little bit of her, but honestly, she's kind of a badass for what little we do see of her.
She's one of the most badass and competent people in this film. Like, as far as competence goes, it's her and Shane.
I can't really argue with that.
They're both very good at what they do.
Yes. And then Sue and Darcy come to the joint realization that Joshua's in the back seat with what is functionally a bomb with enough power to wipe out a city.
Yep. The Autobots arrive in China with some absolutely lovely shots of the Great Wall.
Inside the ship, Cade and Optimus have a conversation.
Cade is big mad that Optimus isn't willing to help the humans after this.
Yeah, no, Cade, buddy, Optimus is mad the humans have wiped out a large number of the small remainder of Cybertronians that were still alive. He's allowed to be mad here, his motivations make sense.
Like, specifically, these people were his friends, and then they got murdered.
Yeah.
And I mean, comparatively, Cybertronians are a massively endangered species compared to humans in this situation.
Yep. A fast-paced chase through the streets of Hong Kong with the CIA chasing Joshua and Sue ensues.
Darcy had taken off to be a distraction, but then we don't actually see her being a distraction. We don't see anyone following her.
The two hide in a building, and Sue beats the crap out of some of the CIA agents following them.
Joshua gets to the roof of the building and is awaiting a helicopter extraction, and takes the time for a drinky drink, pulling one out of a mini fridge that's up there, because presumably that's just where the people who live there hang out.
The Autobot ship arrives to Hong Kong and attempts to pick up Joshua and the Seed, but they're attacked and it crashes into the lush Wulong Valley, which is nowhere near Hong Kong geographically.
Space squishing.
It's a spaceship. What are you talking about?
Oh, the compression of space and time that happens in these movies. But more importantly, Galvatron's minions have started their attack.
Cade, Shane, Tessa, Joshua, Bee, and Hound have been stranded in Hong Kong, and the group attempts to escape.
However, they're not just being hunted by Galvatron, they're also being hunted by the CIA.
Cade distracts the boy while the others make their way down from the roof.
The two end up fighting their way down the building and into some poor random people's apartment.
Cade bonks him on the head with a football and pushes him through a window where he falls several floors.
Goodbye, Savoy. You will not be missed.
Well, maybe except by Attinger, who's not pleased, and as luck would have it, Lockdown arrives in Earth's orbit and radios Attinger.
Attinger proceeds to sick him on the Autobots nearby.
Cade meets back up with the main group, who has been joined by Darcy.
Joshua talks out his ass about Hound's ass, so Hound throws a cigar at him.
He deserved it. Basically, he's like, my robots are just too fantastic and are built to beat these fuckers up.
Hound radios Optimus and asks if he can squish the bald guy.
Yes! Yes! Yes!
Realizing the others are in trouble, Optimus enters the remains of the spaceship and pulls one of the swords out of the pedestal in the armory we saw Cade and Shane in earlier.
Using the sword, he frees some other prisoners and exits the ship with them in tow.
So, these guys are huge. Seriously, they're 2 to 3 times taller than Optimus.
Optimus and the main prisoner begin duking it out.
Crosshairs and Drift, very understandably, are gonna let Prime sort this out. Crosshairs, just decides to chill in a small waterfall nearby.
Optimus decks his opponent, who then turns into a giant dinosaur.
Drift's commentary on this is, I was expecting a giant car.
So, this is Grimlock, and these are the Bay versions of the Dinobots.
And he's going to blow up some beautiful plumes of fire here.
It's a pretty badass looking design, let's be honest. It's a giant robot dinosaur. You have to try pretty fucking hard to fuck this up.
Yep. And upon Grimlock being defeated by Optimus, the Dinobots allow themselves to be ridden.
So you have giant robots riding on giant robot dinosaurs. Just so you know.
Yep. Optimus, Drift, and Crosshairs hop onto Grimlock, Scorn, and Slug, respectively.
Grimlock and Slug and they are joined by Swoop, who's called Strafe here for some reason. Said reasons could be the actual given reason by Hasbro of the two-headed design was considered too much of a departure for the character, or that possibly they lost the trademark at the time because the names have been used interchangeably on various merchandise throughout the year.
Scorn is new for the movie and transforms into a Spinosaurus.
Back in Hong Kong, Cade and the others have been pinned down by Galvatron's minions.
A long fight ensues, many cultural landmarks get blown up, and just general destruction all around.
The cavalry arrives and Galvatron is displeased by his army's desecration.
Bumblebee pairs up with Strafe.
Most of the actual events during this fight don't really matter. It's more of a plethora of explosions.
All flash and no substance.
The humans load up in a random vehicle. Cade actually lets Shane drive.
Growth. The seed activates, and they realize it's likely acting as a homing device.
Lockdown's ship arrives and activates some sort of magnet that begins to suck up anything metal in its vicinity.
Things are then dropping as the magnet moves out of range, causing all sorts of problems for the fleeing humans and Autobots.
Optimus is able to shoot the device and deactivate it.
Shane and Tessa escape with Bumblebee.
Cade runs off to help Optimus. Yeah, I don't know why he thinks that this is a good idea to get involved with basically Optimus and Lockdown punching each other either, but whatever.
We see Attinger arriving in the vicinity and Lockdown jumps out of his ship.
Optimus and Lockdown begin fighting.
Tessa tells Bumblebee to turn around.
Meanwhile, Joshua is in drift crossing the bridge, being escorted by Hound, and Crosshairs and the Dinobots have blocked the bridge behind them.
Back with Optimus and Lockdown, Cade attempts to intercede, but is held at gunpoint by Attinger before Attinger is killed by Optimus.
Lockdown stabs Optimus with his own sword, and Cade begins firing on him as Bumblebee and the others rejoin him.
Shane and Tessa begin using a cable and a tow truck to trip up Lockdown and free Optimus,
allowing Optimus to finally take out Lockdown by cutting him in half.
Then mandatory heterosexual kissing with Shane and Tessa.
Optimus sets off one of Lockdown's grenades, taking out what we presume is the rest of Galvatron's troops.
Father and daughter share a tender moment, and Cade also gives Shane a hug.
Joshua pops back up, offering to help them with their home exploded problem.
Optimus tells the Dinobots that they're free.
Su Yuming pops back up.
Optimus tells the group that by staying, he's putting them in danger, so he intends to leave and take the seed where it will never be found.
He pulls a Dragonheart, telling them to look to the stars, and also to think of one of them as his soul, calling back to the conversation he had with Cade at the beginning of the movie.
He commands his Autobots to defend the Jaegers and then flies off into space. He has never displayed this ability before now.
You are correct. I don't care. We're almost near the end of the fucking movie.
Yep, let's go. And via narration, adding that he's coming for his creators.
And the movie ends not with the Linkin Park song, but with an Imagine Dragons song, Battle Cry. I don't care. We're done. Thank God. I legitimately is like my least favorite one of the live action movies. So like getting through this was a trial. I want you to understand this.
At least the next one has tiny Dinobots.
Look, the next one's so stupid I have fun with it. This one, there's no joy here. There's only stupidity.
Yeah. Alright, so thoughts on this movie?
Well, let's first give our few positives.
Yeah, so one of my big things was the saturation. There's actually color here. The greens were very verdant and lush. The skies were very blue. It was just, where it was pretty, it was very pretty.
Weirdly enough, I personally thought Hound and Crosshairs were kind of neat. I wouldn't say no to seeing similar versions of them in something much better.
Mm-hmm.
John Goodman as Hound was actually enjoyable, though I stand by the comment that he should have just been Cup. And like, look, him and John DiMaggio actually do voice acting. They do perfectly fine voice acting. Peter Cullen does perfectly fine voice acting. I don't even think the guy who did Drift did a bad job. It's like, honestly, some of their performances might have been better than the humans, is what I'm trying to say here.
Yeah. Honestly, it did have better robot acting than in a number of the previous movies.
That's true.
So that's a good point. And Crosshairs had a real sense of style, some definite panache to that guy.
Well, he's wearing, like, a trench coat. Like, it's not a trench coat because it's part of his body, but, like, it looks pretty bitchin', actually.
Yes.
And I really like that Welker returned as Megatron/Galvatron. Personal opinion, sorry if I've said this a million times, but when Welker voices Megatron, Meg sounds like he's having fun with his evil schemes, and frankly, I prefer that over angry and growly. Like he was kind of in the first 3 movies, no offense to that particular actor, who's fine, but I didn't like him as Megatron. Besides, he basically uses the voice he uses for Megatron in Prime, so he still sounds threatening, or he still has the capacity to sound threatening. He just doesn't sound... He sounds like maybe he's enjoying himself, you know?
Mm-hmm. Alright, so bad things. The questionable ethics. Sure, that is honestly probably what the US government or sections of the US government would do in this situation, but yikes.
Yeah. I thought the quick turnaround with the CEO was really fucking stupid.
Yeah.
There's probably a way to do that plot that works, but like, I'm sorry, I don't believe for a fucking second that some rich prick who wipes his ass with $100 bills and dissects people on the regular would do what's best.
Well, he was very definitely doing what's best when he had a bomb in his lap.
Yes, but I still am just kind of like, any other time, I don't trust it.
Mm-hmm.
And as we've said, the writing is just terrible, okay? Like, most of the characters are terrible, they hate each other, the plot doesn't really make a ton of sense, and like, there's things you could change about the plot to make it work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we had an entire discussion about this.
Yes. And I hated Cade.
Yep, he's very obnoxious, and just, I didn't like him. You didn't like him. And I'm sad.
I think the other thing is, like, it doesn't seem like his actions make sense. Like, look, there's ways to make his actions make sense, as I just said, like, such as him not realizing the old truck was a transformer, and then leaving with Optimus after the government's attacked, because he's been attacked. What else is he gonna do? They're trying to kill him. Mm-hmm. But it's aggravating when his entire character is built on caring about his daughter, because so very little of his actions actually feel like they would take care of his daughter. Like, he should be trying to make a stable home life. He should be trying to fund her going to college. But every chance he got to do something like that in the beginning of the movie, he just decided to do something that would serve his own ego.
Yeah, it's all lip service as opposed to actual action that would support his daughter. And I mean, we'd even thought of the suggestion that Cade should have been one of the military guys from the last couple of movies. and that this should have been like a decade in the future, and to have Optimus come to him for help or something.
Because again, like, I understand, I think LaBeouf didn't want to come back for this, I'm like, no bashing, but like, there's no continuity, really, and it's very irritating.
Yeah.
And now for my soapbox. Here's my suggestion to fix this damn movie. Like, the biggest problem at its core is that it desperately needed a cohesive emotional through line. I personally don't feel like anybody in that movie felt jack shit. So, if I were going to do this, I would make the through line grief. Optimus's grief over losing his friends and allies. Cade and his daughter's grief about losing their wife and mother. Like, heck, you could even have Bumblebee grieving Sam if he is dead, as is sort of implied. I would want better defined character motivations. Like, as it stands, Cade just comes across as some egotistical idiot with delusions of greatness. Delusions that are directly impacting his and his daughter's life in some very negative ways. And that's not to say you can't have a character who has flaws. It's just that I don't know if the movie knows that these should be flaws.
Yeah.
And, like, what if we gave Cade better motivations, or hell, even better morals? Because I think his morals are all over the place. Like, what if Cade had been a successful inventor in the past? What if his family had been in Chicago in the last movie? What if the Battle of Chicago destroyed their finances and his business, causing them to have to basically move to his wife's family farm? Like, what if part of his motivations for helping the Autobots was because they saved his wife and or his daughter in the middle of the Battle of Chicago? Suddenly, Cade has more of a motive for wanting to keep the farm. It's tied explicitly to his wife, and a reason for helping the Autobots because he knows they're good. They saved his wife, and he feels like he owes them for that. Like, as Cade exists in this movie, I despise him. Unlike Sam's environment, I have a damn horse in this race. I grew up in an area much more like the start of this movie. It was the middle of nowhere. My dad constantly bought shit we couldn't afford, and thank God it wasn't as bad as this because my mom kept her finances separate from my dad's. But like, I've seen this kind of environment, and like, just don't know how Cade exists there. So like, fuck Cade. He's a bad parent. He should feel bad. May he die drowning in his own inadequacy.
In short, we really can't recommend this movie, but your feelings may vary.
I'm sure that there are people who legitimately like this movie, and as I always say, like, I'm really glad you can enjoy something. We don't, but like, I think this is my least favorite one.
And with that, we're at the end of this movie rodeo for this go-around.
Happy New Year! Our apologies that this will be going up late, like February or March, depending on when my husband finishes editing it.
We both managed to get sick.
And then my computer died. You know, the one we literally record on.
So yeah, this episode just kept getting delayed, and then the holidays happened, which made everything even more delayed, and it's been times.
It's been times. But we will be back with new episodes for G1 soon. I'm not entirely sure when, because I'm not entirely sure when this is getting posted, but within a couple of months. So join us then.
Yep.
Remember to check us out on Tumblr or Pillowport as Afterspark-Podcast for any additional information, etc., etc. You can also find us on Twitter at AftersparkPod, all one word, and various other locations by searching for Afterspark Podcast, such as AO3, iTunes, Spotify, and YouTube, just to name a few. And feel free to send us questions on Tumblr, YouTube, or AO3. Till next time, I'm Als.
And I'm Specs. Adios.
Why not?